Alrighty folks, welcome back to the channel. MrAyrit here. Got a newer IEM for you from Hidizs today. We're going to be looking at the MP145. So this is one of their big, like, oversized planar is how they describe it, IEMs. Let's dive in and see if it's any good. Real quick here, let's look at packaging. You know, it's nothing incredibly fancy, but I thought it was a pretty nice little package. You know, presented well. You get lots of different tip choices here. So you got balance ear tips, vocal ear tips, bass ear tips, all that stuff. And then you get a nice little carry case. And then just discovered this as I was actually pulling things out to do the review, is you get inside of the little case, you get some little nozzles here for for doing some tuning. So seemingly you should be able to tune fairly well between all of these different tips and you know, nozzles and all that. You should be able to tune it to your preference, or so we would hope. So those are kind of the things it comes with. Let's take a look at the IEMs themselves here as we move some of these things off to the side. So the IEMs themselves are, in fact, quite large. Yeah, they're pretty big IEMs. They're not too uncomfortable, I wouldn't say, but they are fairly large. They're machined. They feel quite nice. They look quite nice. They're just big. And so you can see that. I'm not a huge fan of big IEMs, so I might be kind of like a little biased against these guys just as far as like feel in the ear, because they do feel large. But I mean, they are a nice looking IEM, so if the size doesn't bother you, then I did find them to be fairly comfortable. I like smaller, lower profile IEMs. We got a regular 2-pin connection here, nothing fancy about that. The other thing that you need to know is mine came with a 4.4 cable. I think you can choose which one you want. This is just what Hidizs sent me, which, by the way, you know, they're not paying me or anything, but I don't have to send these back. So they gave these to me to review, just so you know. Okay, so let's dig into the sound a little bit on these guys. Now, for my purposes, we're gonna go ahead and we'll talk a little bit about these different nozzles and these different ear tips here. My preference landed on the red nozzles, which I found to be not as sizzly as the pinks, which are what came on mine stock. So they came with these little pink guys stock, and there was a lot of top end sizzle there that I found a little abrasive. I did switch and tried the silver tips or the silver nozzles here, and I thought those sounded a little distant and a little kind of echoey, like the vocals were just pulled way back on that one. So the red ones were kind of a nice in the middle for me, where they took that sizzle down, but they didn't make things feel too distant or far away. As far as ear tips go, I decided to go with the vocal ear tips. I found that to be a pretty nice balance with the red nozzle, in that it brought those vocals forward a little bit. It weren't too sizzly. I still had a decent amount of bass. So that's how mine kind of shook out as far as just where my preference landed with setting these up. So I would say that certainly the nozzles make a difference and the tips make a difference. So you definitely have some room there to play and fiddle with it, and you can probably get a frequency response that's gonna match up to your taste fairly well, and you'll have the opportunity to switch it up depending on, you know, what you want to listen to. Again, I'm mainly like into kind of acoustic folk music at this point in time, so that's kind of what I gear my tuning towards. If you were listening to something like EDM or something like that, it's probably going to be a quite different setup from what I'm doing here. So overall characteristics of the sound then are going to change, right, frequency response wise, but just in general, I found these to be a fairly detailed IEM for the price. I think they do provide a really big sound for an IEM. I didn't feel closed in or claustrophobic or anything like that. Like I said, with the silver tips, they did feel kind of like a little distant, but they always sounded like fairly large as far as staging goes when it comes to IEMs. I never felt like I was like kind of like stuck inside my head. Like music felt natural to me in its presentation of space. And imaging, I would say, is good too. Like the separation between images and stuff like that, I think is really good on these IEMs for the price. That's something that they do really, really well. So a very convincing kind of just sound stage and scape with these IEMs in general. Where I feel like they fall short is in the timbre department. I found them just to be a little bit on like the tinny side when I was listening to them, and it's not something that you like couldn't get used to, but as far as just popping them in and going like, yeah, this sounds right, I felt like things, especially vocals, just often came off just like a little thin and a little tinny sounding is the best way that I can describe it. It just didn't have kind of the rich fullness that I like to have in the vocal ranges. So I think that's, for me, the limiting factor with these. Technically, as far as like detail and, like I said, like imaging, separation, all that stuff, I think they're pretty good. I just think they don't do timbre as well as some of the other stuff in the price range that these guys are. So this brings us to a little comparison, right? These are about $160. I just reviewed the new Meze Albas that are $160, and I really like those IEMs a lot. So I guess you could go two different ways, because these guys are direct competitors. I mean, they're exactly the same price, basically. So if you wanted something that was a little more technically focused and you were really concerned about like spatial information, I think the Hidizs would take it in that regard. But if you're talking just timbre and form factor and just kind of like pure easy to listen to enjoyment factor, for me, the Meze Alba was much better and much more natural sounding and just easier for me to listen to. Now again, that's coming from me, who's biased in like the acoustic folk genre of music. Again, depending on your style of music, the Hidizs could definitely take it, especially I think if you were looking for more space and more bass. I think I'd look at the Hidizs. If you're looking for more vocal centric, more natural, easy to listen to, then I would lean towards the Meze Alba. But both decent IEMs in their own right. I was really impressed with those Albas though. So I think that's going to wrap it up for this guy. If you're into big planar IEMs that have big sound, MP145 is worth a look from Hidizs. So thank you to Hidizs for sending this out. I appreciate getting to try these. As far as just a decent IEM, you know, there's so many good ones on the market for under $200 at this point. It's crazy. Again, I'll say it, I've said it before, if you are just getting into this hobby and you want to just have some fun and try some different things, I think, you know, looking at IEMs is a good place to start to kind of find what you're into. All right, I think that'll do it. As always, I appreciate your time. Thanks for watching. Hopefully I will see you in the next one.